Have you ever tried to self-diagnose something? Now, I have to admit, I am guilty of the "do I have this" syndrome. That's when you feel the symptoms of something, you go to Google, you put on your doctor's hat, and you say, OMG, I think I have this. Today we're going to be talking about how to evaluate the level of love you give. I know you know we are all in a global pandemic right now because of a virus. It's the virus that shut down the world in 2020. And I just want to let you know that Turning Point, we are praying for you, we love you, and we can get through this together. Although we are in a global health pandemic, I think we're also in another pandemic as well, and it's definitely a crisis. It's the virus of love deficiency that's going around. And I think it's one of the reasons for most of the pain and hurt in your life. And I think it's the pandemic that can kill your soul. So how do you know if you have this virus, the virus of love deficiency? Chances are you probably can't go to the CDC website to try to check your symptoms. But the level of love that you give is a direct reflection of how you follow and imitate Jesus. Wouldn't you agree that people make up their own images of what love looks like and who deserves it? So is there a standard for love and how to give love? I think Jesus is that standard. I want to share with you some of the areas in your life that you can look to kind of get a good indication of your level of love. It's kind of like a car. In your car, you have different gauges. You have the speedometer, tells you what speed you're going. You have the gas gauge that tells you how much gas you have left in the car. You have the air temperature gauge that tells you if you need to put air in the tire. And the check engine light lets you know if there's anything wrong with the engine. And in the same way, there's different areas in your life that you could look into to get an indication of where your level of love is and your reflection of your love of Jesus and how you follow Jesus. So one of the areas in your life that you can check is your view of God. How do you view God? Is he this distant person who's not there? Or is he in a loving best friend relationship with you? You know, how you view God will directly reflect your level of love that you have for other people. If your image of God is off, then your reflection of him will be as well. So where can you go to get a good view or image of God? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it your life experiences? Where can you go to get a better view of God? We can go to his words. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 through 8, it's a really cool place in the Bible because it talks about love. And it gives almost like a definition of love or a standard of love. And this is what it says. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Now, this is just a great image of what love is. And we just talked about the image of God. How do you view God? So how does this relate? There's actually a scripture in the Bible. It's in 1 John chapter 14, verse 16b. It says that God is love. God is love. So we can actually interchange the word God for love so that we can see a different image or view of who God really is. Let's try it. So going back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 8. If we read it that way, it'll read as, God is patient. God is kind. God does not envy. God does not boast. God is not proud. God is not rude. And God is not self-seeking. He is not easily angered. He keeps no records of wrongs. And God does not delight in evil, but he rejoices in the truth. God always protects. God always trusts. God always hopes. God always perseveres. God never fails. So having a correct view of God is very important, but even more important than that is having a relationship with God. And that brings us to the next area of your life that you can check to check your level of love. It's checking your relationship with God. Where are you in your relationship with God? You know, just because you know someone doesn't mean that you have an everyday relationship with them. So you can know about God or know of God, but not have a functioning daily relationship with him. There was one time where I went to North Hollywood to go to the bank, and I opened up the door for this guy. We started talking in line, laughing, having a good time. And then he goes to his teller. I go to my teller. And then I go, I feel like this guy is very familiar. Like I've seen him somewhere before. And so I go on my phone. I'm scrolling on my phone. I'm like, oh yeah, he looks like M'Baku from the Black Panther. And so anyway, we both get done. We're leaving out of the bank. And then I open up the door for him. And I say, hey, quick question. Has anybody ever told you that you look like M'Baku from Black Panther? And he laughed and I laughed and he was like, yeah, I get that a lot. I was like, yeah, man, you look just like the man. And afterwards he was like, you know what? I am M'Baku. And I was like, what? You know, so his real name's Winston Duke. But it was just incredible to just meet this guy at the bank. Living in LA, sometimes you run into celebrities. But the reason why I share that is because I had an image of what he looked like. I've seen him in some movies and I had a view of him. But because I didn't have a relationship with him, I didn't even recognize him when he was right in front of me. And sometimes that's what can happen in our relationship with God. We might not even recognize when God is trying to act in our lives or he's right in front of us. So just having a good view of God isn't enough. You want to have a great relationship with God. The level to which you experience God's love will influence the level of love you give to others. And the level of love you give to others will reflect your understanding of God's love. The next area of your life that you could check to gauge your love levels is you can check your compassion. There are moments in your everyday life where you either see someone or a situation happens and it kind of throws you off. Maybe it's an argument, maybe it's something you saw on the news or something just throws you off. And sometimes we could be quick to judge. I think in those moments, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself questions that's going to lead you to compassion. One of the questions you can ask yourself when somebody hurts you is, what love did this person not receive or accept that's causing them to act this way? Another thing you can ask yourself is, what does love require of me? In Matthew chapter 9, verse 36, Jesus is actually an incredible example of compassion. In some parts, it even says that God is the father of compassion. So he birthed compassion. And so in Matthew 9, chapter 9, verse 36, it says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. So Jesus was able to kind of put on his compassion glasses when he ran into this crowd. and he was able to see through the shallow and the mundane, and he was able to go deeper to find that love of compassion. So how are you doing in this area of your life when situations happen where you can exercise compassion? How do you process that? Asking yourself compassion questions can transform your relationships. In my relationship with my dad, actually, I've been asking myself a lot of these compassion questions, and I have in the past. And my relationship with my dad right now, I really love my dad. We have a great relationship, but it didn't always used to be that way. When I was younger, there was a certain point in my life where I felt like my love for my dad started to decrease. And it was hard to process. I was a little younger, but I started highlighting a lot of his flaws instead of looking at all the things that he was doing well. And so I started to demonize him. And so this affected my relationship with him because of what I felt. And I remember just becoming a Christian and learning from Jesus' example of having compassion. I knew I had to change how I viewed my dad if I was going to follow Jesus. And so one of the things I did as I asked myself questions about how he fathered me and things like that, there were so many incredible things that he did, but for the things that I felt like there was a deficit, I asked myself, why? Why was this? And I also asked myself, did he have an example in his life to give me what I'm wanting from him? And he didn't. Actually, when he was really young, his father, he passed away. So he had a great example of fathering a son all the way up into the age that he didn't have that. And after that, I imagine there may have been insecurities. I'm not sure, but I know for me, knowing that my dad didn't have that example, it helped me to have a little bit more compassion on him. And then my expectations of my dad changed, and then my level of love for him changed. And now our relationship is so much better just because I chose to ask compassion questions. The other area of your life that you could check to determine your love levels is, how do you treat people? Ask yourself that. Not how do you treat people when you feel good about them or they're your friends. How do you treat people when you feel crossed by them? How do you treat people when you don't agree with what they are saying or you don't agree with what they are doing? How do you treat people that treat you negatively? I want to leave us with 3 questions to ask ourselves. The first question is, if Jesus is the standard of love, how do you fare? Where are you at? You can kind of grade yourself on a scale from 0 to 10. Where do you feel like you're at in reflecting Jesus' love to people, even in tough situations? The second question I have for you is, what would other people say about you? Would they say that you reflect your level of love more? Or would they say that you reflect Jesus' level of love? The third question I have for you is, I want you to ask yourself, what are some things I can do this week to better reflect the love of Jesus? Thank you so much for listening today. And I am so excited to see the level of love you give grow as you love Jesus, you follow him, and you imitate him. Thanks.